Now, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has touched down in Moscow. It's his first visit to Russia since its invasion of Ukraine. New Delhi hasn't condemned the war, but it's advocated a peaceful solution and remains a key trading partner. Trade between the two sides sharply increased to $65 billion in the last financial year due to strong energy cooperation. Vladimir Putin will no doubt be using Modi's visit to demonstrate to the West that he isn't a pariah on the world stage. We can now bring in France 24's chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Rob, good afternoon. Now, whatever happens with this trip, whatever the outcome, Putin's going to use this to his advantage, isn't he?
Well, he's going to try to. It's interesting that it should be happening at the time when the NATO summit is about to start off in the US. So he will, of course, he'll be trying to do it. The fact that he's recently seen Orban, the Hungarian prime minister, as well, he's trying to put across the impression that he's not isolated on the world stage. But, seeing the leader of North Korea and seeing Orban, whose visit wasn't seen by the European Union as an official European Union visit to Moscow, doesn't really add up to the sort of international recognition that he would like. Getting Narendra Modi, however, is a different kettle of fish. That is a much more serious visit. But how much he'll get out of it is another matter, though. I think Narendra Modi will go to Moscow being very cautious. It's in his interest to go now because he's concerned about the developing relationship between Russia and China. He will want to get a sounding, I think, from President Putin about what that precisely means and how far Russia wants to go with that relationship and how damaging potentially it could be for India, because India regards China as its greatest geopolitical threat and is concerned that the cozying relationship between China and Russia could be potentially threatening to India, given the fact that India's main arms supply, even today, all these decades after the collapse of the Soviet Union, is Russia. Even today, 60% of the weapons that India has in its inventory are of either Soviet or Russian origin. It is true that the amount of armaments coming into India from Russia is much diminished now by comparison with, say, the 1990s. Still around 30% or so. But, those are the concerns that Narendra Modi will be going to Moscow about. He's going there open-eyed. He's pulled back from Russia over the years. You mentioned that he hasn't been there since 2015. He was in Russia in 2019 Economic Forum in Vladivostok, but he's met Putin less and less. There used to be the case that the Indian and Russian leaders would meet once a year for a bilateral summit. Not happening anymore, and I don't see this as being a change in that direction. I think Narendra Modi feels he's the leader of a very powerful, growing country, the largest population in the world, the fastest growing economy in the world. He's the one who can call the shots.
He's the one who can call the shots, but while the West won't necessarily say anything about the visit, they will no doubt be watching, won't they?
Yes, of course they'll be watching, and there have already been one or two shots across the Indians' bows. For instance, the U.S. ambassador to India warned the Indian enterprises not to break sanctions against Russia, because there's been a considerable amount of concern in the West about certain companies in India doing precisely that. Although there has been a degree of tolerance for the very reason that I just mentioned, that the West needs India as well. India is a very rapidly developing economy, very big population, a lot of Western investment going into India. So the Indians know that they can play this game as long as they're very cautious about it. But the fact of the matter is the West sees that India, in many respects, has saved the Russian economy over the last 2 years. You mentioned that $65 billion worth of oil imported. The West could well do without that, but it's not going to happen.